This is the Untold Italy travel podcast, and you are listening to episode number 208.
Ciao a tutti and benvenuti to Untold Italy, the travel podcast where you go to the towns and villages, mountains and lakes, hills and coastlines of Bella Italia. Each week your host, Katy Clarke, takes you on a journey in search of magical landscapes, history, culture, wine, gelato, and of course, a whole lot of pasta. If you're dreaming of Italy and planning future adventures there, you've come to the right place.
Buongiorno everyone. Today we're taking a trip back to magical Venice with my friend and let's say conspirator, Monica Cesarato. If you haven't met Monica yet, do go back to previous episodes about Venice I recorded with her, number 35 and number 185, to catch up. In those episodes we hear about Venetian secrets and her favourite topic, cicchetti, those little Venetian bites served with drinks that are the backbone of the city's food culture. They're lots of fun. Monica is somewhat of a local celebrity, having shown movie stars and whatnot around Venice. I certainly felt like I was getting some extra special treatment when I spent the day with her last year. And the reason for that is that Monica is an absolute champion of her city. She is there making sure everyone who will listen, and even those who don't, takes note of all that is marvellous about Venice, from its art and history to its daily routines. But today I've invited Monica onto the show to talk about the artisans of the city who preserve long-standing cultural traditions that are part of the very fabric of Venice, the beautiful and incomparable lagoon city. Bentornata, Monica. Welcome back to the Untold Italy podcast.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to be back. I love always talking to you.
Oh, me too. And I can't wait to see you in a few months' time in person and give you a big hug.
I know.
But how have you been?
I know. I can't wait. Big things coming.
How have you been, Monica? I know you have some exciting news to share.
Busy, because finally my English version of my book on cicchetti has been published. And it's been a nightmare because, of course, it's been published. It's all over the bookshops in Venice, all over the bookshop of the Veneto region. But obviously we had problem with Amazon. So I sent a big newsletter out, my book is available, and everybody went to try to get it and they couldn't.
Oh.
And then the moment it was available, it went sold out in 24 hours. So now we have to wait for more time to be, because obviously the publishers got to send it over to replenish the stocks. But it's available. And if people cannot find it, it's called Andar per Baccari. If they cannot find it on Amazon, they can just send me an email. I do have some copies and they can buy from me directly. So that's easier. Or they book a tour and they can find it in my bag with me all the time.
Monica Aguri, congratulations. That's so well deserved.
Thank you.
Really. I'm so proud of you, and it's just so well deserved. For those of you who haven't met Monica yet on our podcast, I think I first spoke to you in COVID times.
Yeah, long time. It feels so long ago. I mean, it feels like we've been talking for years.
We have been talking for a long time, but I think some people might not know you. So maybe you can just reintroduce yourself and let everyone know who you are.
Oh, okay. So I'm a blogger from Venice. I'm a podcaster from Venice. I'm also a food guide from Venice and a social media manager, and I write books. And I think I'll finish it. Otherwise, in another hour, we're still talking about me. But let's say I specialized on Venice because, I live just outside there and I work most of the time there. But I was born as a blogger, and then everything else came along with everything else.
Yes, and I can highly recommend going on a cicchetti tour with Monica. I had a personal private one this year, which was fantastic, but you can join one, and I'm taking my team on one next year, which I'm so excited about. But apart from being very tasty, it's a lot of fun and it's non-stop laughs with Monica, so we always have a good time. Okay, so Monica, we know that you've literally written the book on cicchetti and that your love for Venice knows no bounds, and you're also passionate about your city's artisans. Can you tell us a little bit about the artisan tradition in Venice and why artists have gathered there and been nurtured?
Yeah, okay. So first of all, let me, if it's okay with you, I would like to explain where my passion for the artisans of Venice was born. It actually was born at the beginning of my blog, when I was looking for, blog posts to write about the city and so on. And I came across on social media onto this person that right now she's become probably my best friend. But it was like, must have been 2008, 2009, something like that, I can't remember. Practically, I found her. Her name is Marisa Convento. She's an amazing artisan from Venice. She does glass jewelry. And she was very good on social media promoting the glass beads of Venice. So I decided to go and interview her. I still remember the day I walked into her shop and it was like literally we clicked straight away. The passion that she had for everything that was made by hand and the importance of artisanship and crafts in Venice. She was so passionate about it that she literally made me passionate about it. And that's how it all started. And, I discovered so many things from her because, she's so knowledgeable as well. She knows everything about artisans. She knows everybody in Venice as well. So slowly, I grew this love for the arts. That is not strange considering that Venice, maybe more so than many other cities, is a city that was based on crafts, because the city was built on guilds, association, unions. So no matter what job you were doing, and this relates also to food, no matter what job you did, you had to belong to a union and pay taxes. This was very important. That's what actually made Venice great and wealthy. And such a big, powerful country, because everybody literally was part of his guilds and confraternities and so on. And so you had the guilds for every little thing. You couldn't work unless you belonged to a guild. So you're talking about there were guilds for the glass beads, there were guilds for the Murano glass, for the people dealing with wax, for the people dealing with the leather, the people that were dyeing the leather, the people that, the people that build the gondolas, the people that make woodwork. You name it, there was a guild, okay? And then stayed right to the end. I mean, still now there are in the city of Venice some associations that come from the old guilds, So it's always been parts of the city, paper. This is a city where printing kind of got developed. It wasn't invented here, but it was developed here, with Aldo Manuzio and so on. This is the city, of course, of Murano glass. This is the city, iron. There's so many things that was done with iron in the city. You name it. We are the city in the world with the last gold beater by hand with a big hammer that size on ingots, to make it fin. And this tradition goes back to hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So that's why.
And I guess it was such a rich republic that there were people who had money to spend, right?
Oh, yes, of course. And the difference between Venice and Florence is that while Florence, they were investing mostly on the churches and so on, and it was the rich aristocrats' family. In Venice, they were rich, but they were merchants. And we didn't have a pope. I mean, of course, we were Catholic, we were Christian, so on. But Venice always put itself first. We were the only independent country during the Middle Ages, never under the control of a pope. And this allowed the city to do things that maybe in other cities they couldn't. So to build in a certain way, to do certain things, to have certain fashions and certain materials and certain people in the city, but in other parts of Italy, because of a church, they weren't allowed to do. That was, very important. The guilds played a massive part in the wealth of the city and, in all the beautiful buildings that you see nowadays. And unfortunately, we lost a lot of that because there was pride. It was when you became, a stonemason, it was passed from father to son, to son, to son. And I think we lost a lot of that, unfortunately.
I can imagine. I mean, we just don't value that intricacy and level of detail anymore, I think. I remember Monica actually took me to a shop. If you don't want to spend any money in Venice, don't go with Monica.
Okay, they do say that I can sell ice to the Eskimo. That's true. Okay, but tell me, you are satisfied?
I was very satisfied. I found this beautiful Sacred Heart brooch. It's just a tiny, tiny, tiny mosaics, and she knows all the places to go. And I think, one of the other things that probably influenced this artisan tradition is probably just the fact that they were merchants and they were going to different parts of the world and picking up different skills, like traveling to Constantinople and to the East. And
yeah. They were always exposed to the latest fashion, to the new innovative ideas, and they were open to this as well. So that was the important part of Venice. But one thing, going back to the shopping with me, is there's one thing I always stress out whenever I meet people during tours or I meet people in general or whatever. Because I've been there, I was in the same situation before I learned things, okay? So I would have been the first one that was going to try to spend as little as possible to buy, cheapy stuff and whatever. Then I've learned. And you need to go back to value time, okay? People time and skills. Okay, so if you go and buy a mask and it costs you €5, it's obviously going to be made in plastic and on a machine. If you go and buy a Venetian mask and it costs you €50, let's consider how long it takes. It takes at least a day to make because you go first to prepare all the bases, the paper mache, and that takes ages to prepare. Then you have to decorate it, and that takes ages again. So how come we're always so willing to pay $100, $200, $300 an hour a doctor, a solicitor, an architect, but we're not willing to do the same when it comes to an artisan? To get to the stage where an artisan can do maybe something in 1 hour, it took him maybe 30, 40 years to get there. Because if you try to do exactly the same thing, there's no way you're going to be able to do it. So why aren't we willing anymore to pay for that? So I always been of the idea that time is the same for everybody. So whatever I spend an hour, whatever you spend an hour, why shouldn't I be valued? Okay, because time is time. Knowledge is knowledge.
Absolutely. I think that just comes down to everything, whether it's, was it an interior design company the other day, and I was asking the young woman the same thing, is like, do you often get asked for advice for free? And she said, oh, yes. And, it happens to me too, and I'm sure it happens to you too, but you're so right.
Oh, yeah.
It's everyone needs to value everyone else's time and the effort and the expertise that they have. And, if you are prepared to pay for it, the value that you get back is so much more, and you get a beautiful thing that you can look at. So I know Monica showed me where to go to get my masks for my children, and we got these beautiful rabbit ones. And we've got a rabbit and a fox. But they're absolutely stunning. And you can tell the difference and you can see the craftsmanship that's gone into it. What was your favourite mask shop in Venice, Monica?
Oh, I'll go a few. Well, first of all, that one that I'm pretty sure I sent you to, it's called Peter Pan, but now I've changed his name anyway. I can never remember what name I changed it to, but it's in Campus San Mater Domini. San Mater Domini, I think it's called. I really love them. I really love also Kamakana, the masks that they make at Kamakana. To be honest with you, there's many, okay? And they're all very good as long as you see the mask maker there making the mask. That's it. They're all different ones. So if you buy a mask from a souvenir shop, it's a souvenir shop. They're not going to be handmade. You want to see a real mask, you need to see the guy or the girl there doing the job, and then it's handmade. And then and then you from the prices anyway. It's not going to be cheap, obviously.
That's so true.
I always say, if you come into Venice to buy cheap souvenirs, don't bother, go and buy food. Bring back food. That's fine. Then it will be cheap and it will be fine. Yeah. If you want to bring back something lasting, a good memory, then be ready to invest. Buy less, but buy better. They say less is better. Less is more. It's exactly the same from the handmade and above all for the made in Italy.
Yes, absolutely. And the masks are from the tradition of the
carnival, yes. Yeah, people don't realize actually the idea of carnival, obviously, we had a kind of idea of carnival since Roman times, but it was actually in Venice that we have the first signs. The Venice Carnival dates back at least the first signs, because obviously probably it was before that, but the official dates are around the year 1000. So we're talking about, a long time. And it was the idea that the Venetians had wanted a certain period of time to celebrate with, eating a lot of meat and so on before Lent, okay? And it started with a period of time that went from January to the beginning of Lent. And then it got bigger and bigger and bigger until in Venice it got to the point that it nearly reached over 200 days of carnival, okay? And it got to the point where everybody was really, the richer the city went, the more they wanted to show it. And this carnival got bigger and bigger until it turned into something that wasn't a carnival anymore. It was more of sorry, I got to say this, but it was more of an orgy, okay? And it was. But back to the story, Venice was a city that was divided in classes. It had a very strong social class system. And during carnival, it was possible for all the social classes to mix because everybody was wearing a mask. And because everybody was wearing a mask, you could be a farmer talking to a duke or something like that, somebody very important. And that's the only time they were allowed to. That's why it got bigger and bigger and bigger until at one point it just got so crazy that, the Austrians decided, no, stopped it. And this went on until the 1970s when it finally was revived. And from there on, he had his, I think, the best times were the 80s and the 90s. Now it's gone back to being a commercial kind of thing. The masks comes from there because originally there was only one certain type of mask or a couple. And then they developed more and more and more and more. And what's interesting is that I only found this out recently, and this still happens nowadays. Back in the days, they used to have women preparing the masks, but they were housewives. So they will give them the jobs all over the city of Venice to do. And then there was one person collecting what was done. And it's really funny because in a way it's still happening today. So it's interesting.
Masks are a very important symbol of Venice and people would know to seek out masks. But what are some of the other crafts and traditions that you have in the city?
Oh my God. Okay, so let's start. I was mentioning before Murano glass that I think is the most famous. Everybody knows about the Murano glass furnaces, but I don't think I need to go too much into that because I think everybody knows about them. What I want to go back instead is glass beads, because a lot of people don't actually realize that Venetian glass beads are a part of UNESCO. I think it was 2 years ago. They were enlisted as an intangible good together with the French ones. It was a long process. It took them about 12 years to get there. So it was a lot of work on the part of Marisa and everybody else. And people don't realize that actually the glass beads have been around for probably even longer than the Murano glassmakers, or more or less at the same time, because, glass beads have been making, we've got glass beads since they invented glass, really. They discovered how to make it. But Venetian glass beads are very important because during the period when Venice was at its most famous apex, the glass beads were used as a coin, as a bargaining coin, as a chip. The story goes that New York, before it was called New York and it was called New Amsterdam, was bought from the Indians with Venetian glass beads. Okay, so that shows you in Africa, most of the tribes were bargaining and trading and exchanging beads for goods, So Venetians were bringing back goods and then giving the beads. The Masai, most of the little beads that you see on the Masai, not now anymore, but back in the days, they used to be from Venice. Venetian glass beads were, known all over the world until obviously the new cheaper versions came along, plastic or made with machine and so on. So it's very interesting to meet people like Alessia Fuga, another very good friend of mine, where you can go to her studio and she does classes as well. Where you actually can try to make a glass bead. And trust me, you got to be very dexterous because you need to do completely two different movements with one hand and the other. And after that, I was doing that for about an hour, 2 hours. I was clenching my mouth so much that when I finished, all I was hurting was here because I was like, because you got to turn, and at the same time you got to be careful because the particular thing of Murano glass is that it's a soft glass. So it melts very quickly, but also hardens very quickly. So when you're standing there doing this movement to try not to get the, the bead to solidify or to drop, it's not easy because at the same time you got to do other things. So, okay. But I recommend it. Totally recommend it.
Oh, absolutely. I was actually very lucky for my birthday to get a piece from Alessia Fuga. It's very, very precious to me. Yeah, and it was a very, very thoughtful gift, someone who has been on this podcast a lot.
She's amazing. She's one of my favorite people in the world, not just because how good she is, because she's a great teacher, I got to say. I mean, I used to teach myself languages and I do cooking classes as well. So she's an amazing teacher. She's got so much patience. It's unbelievable. She's very, very, very meticulous, so very detailed in her work. So that's why she's famous in the city as well and appreciated in the city as an artisan for that reason. And I'm talking about appreciated by the big masters. I mean, she's got the big masters like Seguso, like Tagliapietra, people like that. I mean, we're talking about big people. They're really considered one of the best glass bead makers ever because she's so detailed. She makes us to do these tiny little things. It's like, how do you do that? That's because she's very meticulous. Another crafts that I think is very interesting for Venice, for people coming to Venice, is to go and see, obviously. To me, they're obvious, and maybe to people that have been to Venice are obvious, but maybe for those that are not coming, never came to Venice or not, is to go and see not just the gondola makers, because that's very interesting as well. There aren't that many left, it's very interesting, but also the people that do the orlocks. Of those, I think there are only 3 or 4 left. My favorite is Piero Dri because he's young, he's fun, and we've known each other for a long time. And he's very passionate about Venice. He's an activist as well. He's always organizing cleanup of a lagoon and let's fight for this, let's fight for that. But he's an amazing artisan. And he's the first one that one morning woke up when he started doing these crafts and decided that, the orlock. The orlock wasn't used just for the gondola. It's used for all of the Venetian boats. But of course, there are less and less boats because there are less and less Venetians. And he realized that the orlocks makes a great ornament. So he started turning them not just as something that can be used, but also lamps, statues, and earrings as well. He made them in this, the size of earrings. And he's somebody that really knows a lot about his craft and the history of his craft. So I love talking to him when we're talking about, artisans and stuff, because it always gives me idea. He likes to connect with other people and work with other people. He totally understood that this is a time to do a lot of networking amongst themselves. Because I think that's a problem a little bit with the Venetian old school. And that comes from the way Venetians were. Each craft trying to keep it with the closed doors. That's what happened with Murano. A lot of old masters died and they didn't leave anything written. So the secret recipes of how to make certain shades of glass and so on have gone lost because they didn't write it down and they didn't pass it on to. And that is the problem, I think, with what's happening in Venice. The artisans are slowly, less and less because young people don't want to do manual jobs. And we are losing that craft. Somebody else that I really loved is also... she's probably one of the first artisans I ever interviewed. We're talking about nearly 15 years ago. And when she started, she was right at the beginning. It's Arianna from Plum Plum. She's near the ghetto and she does etching. Etching, again, is very important for the city of Venice. Now, there's only 3 or 4 of them left. But back in the days, it's a way that people used to decorate books. Since printing was massive in Venice, most of the books were printed in Venice. Etching was one of the main industries in the city. And then, of course, as everything became industrialized, less and less.
Does she do mainly restoration work?
Etching, no, she does. She actually does etching, so aquaforte and so on, and also paintings and stuff. No, she does her own, and it's very nice. She does classes as well. So that's what I like about many of these artisans, that they at least those that I'm friends with, they embrace the idea of, okay, we cannot have people working for us as like apprenticeships and stuff like that. Okay, let's give classes. Let's show people what make it by hand means. And it's nice. Not everybody's good because, well, you need to have passion. You need to know how to teach. Just because you know how to do a job, it doesn't mean you can teach it.
No.
I mean, I remember when I was in England, everybody wanted me to teach Italian. And I could do it. That's fine. It's no problem. But when we came back and my ex-husband was with me and he was British, everybody asked him to teach English. Well, he couldn't because he wasn't good at teaching. Simple as that. Just because he was mother tongue doesn't mean he can teach you. So it's the same thing. Just because you know a craft doesn't mean you're good at teaching. So it's very important, I think, this.
But I feel like it's really going to be important, not just to teach visitors, but to keep the traditions alive by teaching other people. And hopefully there are young people coming through with those passions. I mean, it's not as part of the daily life anymore, I guess, but it is something special. I know just before I had my children, there was a barista at the coffee shop. Everything leads back to coffee or food, Monica, as you know.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And he told me that he'd just come back from Venice on a restoration project, and he was just passionate about that. And it was mainly paintings, but there's also the gold leaf restoration because there's so much gold leaf.
Yeah, there's mosaics. I don't know their names. I got a few people that I discover through people, that come to Venice to visit because, sometimes there are the usual known, the usual suspect, but there are some people that, maybe they just started as in promoting themselves. I mean, maybe they've been working for years, but they never were on social media and so on. And I discovered that there are a few mosaic artists that are very, they do classes and very good. And I'm going to try to interview them pretty soon and on my podcast about it for that reason, because as you know, my podcast is about Venetians. Yeah, I think it's a problem, but I don't think it's a problem just in Venice. I think it's a problem worldwide to find young people. Young people, unfortunately, the people that are listening to us, they're not young. Wish I were.
Hang on a minute, Monica. There are these, it's all age groups. We welcome all of them.
Okay. So to the young people listening, there isn't just TikTok. Okay, there is a lot in the world and you will be surprised sometimes. I think it happens that way. You are in the right place at the right time and all of a sudden it sparks and you understand that's what you want to do. And that's, I think, what young people need to do again is get off, their phones, get off their PC. We're talking about somebody that spends hours in front of a PC, but you need to go back. But we have experienced the world before. Okay, I think that's the difference.
But maybe that we need to meet them a little bit halfway. So maybe if we show these things on TikTok, then they can be inspired.
Oh, yeah, of course. But I always say that the biggest problem that the city of Venice has is that they got an untapped mind. They got a mind that is full of things for people to do when they come to Venice that is not going to Samar Square. And they are not using it. They're full of famous people coming to the city and talking about the city, but they're not using them in the right way. I mean, if all the influencers, all the actors, all the famous VIP that come to Venice, even just every time they come, one went into one of these shops. Can you imagine how many people will get to know about these artisans?
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes they like to keep it to themselves, but maybe they shouldn't really because, it's very important, supply and demand. If people see the demand for something, then they will invest the time to learn that craft maybe. Another place that you took me to was on the Rialto Bridge, and I was like, oh, Monica, what's this on? We're going on the Rialto Bridge, come on.
Yes, you're talking about the cameo shop, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, right. So actually we interviewed him the other day, finally, after years. I mean, we've been friends years and we worked together for many years, but it took me so long to convince him to talk on the podcast. Yes, he's the Radio Von. So I love to talk with Marco because he really embraces the made in Italy idea. His shop has been there since 1934, so it's one of the historic shops of Venice. It was opened by his granddad, but his dad kind of developed it. And even though, let's admit, cameos and corals are not from Venice, we're not debating that. We all know they come from south of Italy, Colano, Positano, and all over that area, whatever. We're not debating on that. But he has developed such a network of artisans working with him, and he does them as well, promoting the made in Italy. I mean, he doesn't touch anything unless it is from certified that he knows exactly where it comes from. So his corals must be the Italian corals, only Italian corals, cameos. And when you walk in there, you don't buy something, you just get like an hour history, because him and his family are very passionate about this. And I think that's what makes it different maybe from any other jewelry shop around there. Okay. And the selection, oh my God, it's got so much stuff, and so much vintage stuff as well, because I think it's got one of the biggest collection of vintage cameos, definitely in Venice, if not in Italy. The other day he said to me, he actually opened a box, but he totally forgot about it. He found it somewhere and hidden in the shop. He opened it, and it was a box from his dad, and there must have been like 500-600 cameos in there. But we're talking about if he was from his dad, you're talking about like 60, 70 years ago, and those were already old when his dad got them. So, it's amazing. Yeah.
Wow. Maybe you can explain what a cameo is, because some people might not know.
Okay, so, cameos have been long since men has been around, because literally is depicting something on stone. So let's talking about the primitives that they used to draw on the walls. That is in a way a cameo. Cameos actually got developed mainly during the Greek and Roman times, and is when they carved onto stones or onto shell, turquoise, coral, cornelian shell. You carve a face or a picture of something, okay? Back in the days of the Roman times, it would have been the gods, anything mythology. Then during the Middle Ages, it would have been portraits of people. During the 1800s, it was something that became very big from Italy. So during the Grand Tour, you couldn't say you went to a Grand Tour of Italy unless you went back with a cameo. And, and the cameo had to be beautiful, and, the bigger, the better. Then I think it kind of died down in the 1900s. It wasn't so much, and now there is a rebirth. It's very interesting. But you can find cameos on shells. You can even find them carved on glass, and I think that's very interesting. Yeah, because it's obviously is a very particular technique. But it's very interesting because one thing that Marco does, and I love that particularly about him, is you can have your own cameo. As in, you send him a picture of what you want, and then you'll have your own special cameo. But he's very strict on the number of cameos he does. I think he limits it to about 100 per year, because it takes about a few days to make one. I mean, when I was down to Sorrento, I went down to have a look at some of his artisans, and I went in one of the best artisan shops there, and I sat there with him watching him. It takes a long time. It is a complicated process. I mean, he made it look easy, but trust me, it wasn't.
Yeah, because it's very thin, isn't it, the shell? If you make a wrong move, you can crack it very easily.
See, because what they do is they take it whenever they want to carve, they draw it first. But the drawing obviously is not 3D, it's 2D. And so from there, you have to bring it out. It's not easy, It's not easy. I think it takes years to become an amazing carver,
Yeah, so if you want your own Venetian selfie, you can send your picture to Marco and he'll make you a cameo.
That is so much better, isn't it?
So much better.
Or your family, or your pets and stuff.
Yeah, and it's children. I saw a lot of ones of children when I was there in that shop. It was beautiful. Were there any other particular crafts that you like?
Oh my God, I got I told you I got a massive list. Okay, very quickly. So if you go to Burano, you got to go to one of the shops that sell lace, because again, lace is one of the oldest crafts from the city of Venice. The problem is you got to be careful, of course, because there is Rio Burano and, of course, no Rio Burano, like all everything. If it's cheap, it ain't. Because just to make one little, I'm not kidding, something like that.
It's about the size of a euro coin she's showing me, yeah.
It can take a whole day to a lady to make, okay? So that's 12 hours for something like that. So So one great shop, I think, is one of the best, is well known because also they have a little lace museum upstairs. So you got the lace museum in Burano, but they got their own collection upstairs, and it's called Martina Vidal. It's right at the beginning. When you arrive in Murano, it's one of the first shops you see. It's really big and they're very well known. They always have a lady sitting there making the lace. Another great place that I always mention in my thing is my friend Stefania Giannici Paper Owl, because she makes everything with paper. And I remember during an interview, I said she can build the world with paper. I mean, you mention it, she will make it. And she does amazing jewelry, paper jewelry. So it's really, I mean, it's amazing. First, how light they are, so you can keep it all day long, a long necklace, and it doesn't weigh nothing. And the details, and it's so different from other type of paper jewelry. So I think that will be very interesting. Another great place is to go where I took you, that is in the Ghetto, Antichità del Ghetto, to see the old crafts, because they are specialized, in micro mosaics, that Murano micro mosaics that are not around anymore. So everything's vintage there, of course, and antique, and also in Judaics. So anything to do with the Jewish religion, they usually have it, but they also got a lot of other antiques, and it's beautiful place. Well, you've been with me, so you know how nice it was.
But those mosaics are incredible. I mean, we're talking about the dot of a pen, the size of, like if you just have a pen dot on a piece of paper, that's how big the squares are.
You need a magnifying glass to look at them, otherwise you cannot understand. You look at it, you think, oh, okay, and when you start looking with them, oh my God. And they stopped doing those in the 80s when they stopped producing the tassels. So anything there is at least 50-year-old, at least. Oh, another great place to go is costume making, of course. You cannot go to Venice and not go and see the beautiful carnival costumes. So one of my favorite, I got three ones that I really like. Atelier Pietro Longhi. They are more about historic costumes. So if you go there and you're looking for a real historic costumes, that's the place to go. Okay. Then another one is, I was talking about before, Kamakana. They do beautiful dresses as well. And the last one is instead, if you want something a bit more like princess-like, and it is Atelier Nicolao, that's in Cannaregio. That is amazing. They do. And Atelier Nicolao does a lot also for theater and for film productions. Most of the film production that comes to the city, if it's, costumes, they will go to them. And at the back, they got an immense
collection
area with all these costumes. It's amazing. So that is a great, it's artisanship because it's all tailoring, handmade. So, and food. You need to go and have chocolates. You need to go have handmade chocolates. And that's the only place to do that is Vizio Virtù.
Oh, Monica, as you know, you're always welcome on this podcast and you'll always be back. But let's just say our listeners can't wait until they hear you next on Untold Italy or until they see you in Venice. How can they stay in touch with you and what you're doing to support your city?
Okay, so, they can find me on my blog, that is www.monicacesarato.com. They can find me with my podcast on any podcast platform called Venice Talks. And I only talk about Venice, so you know, okay? They can find me on Amazon now with my book. It feels so good to say that. Andar per Baccari, where I talk about how to eat in Venice, about cicchetti, about wine. I talk about it, but it's also a cookbook, so there are recipes as well. And I got to say thank you to everybody that's been listening to you all these years and that been booking my tours and coming. And I honestly got to say 9 out of 10 inquiries I get. Or let's say 9 out of 10 tours I get, there are people saying to me, oh, we heard you with Katy. Oh, we heard you. And I go like, okay. So I'm very happy about that. And I'm happy because I like the fact that the podcasts are working, that are showing, I think, the people, the passion that we have, because you can write. But I think it's only when you hear somebody that you actually... Well, many people say to me, by the time they come and meet me, it's like they already know me. So he makes my life even easier when I do the tours,
Yeah, it's true. Oh, Monica, I'm so happy to hear that. It's just been an absolute pleasure to use my platform to give people a voice. We hope to keep doing that and doing that for a very long time to come. So grazie mille. I can't wait to see you in Venice very soon.
I got to say, you do an amazing job. And, I'm so happy you started something like this, because it really, I think this is the way that we all should go to promote tourism. You giving us, people like me, voice, well, I can't thank you enough.
I don't know if I've given you a voice. Your voice is pretty good anyway, but I'm glad we found each other.
Extra voice. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to see you in March.
Oh, hooray. Exciting. Yeah, it's going to be great. Thank you, Monica.
Ciao, everybody.
Ciao. I wonder what I'm going to buy when I'm in Venice in a few weeks. Thanks to Monica, best salesperson ever, I'm fast amassing a collection of treasures to covet for a very long time. Heirloom pieces, I call them. Why not? The traditions of Venice and the artisans behind them add such a beautiful richness to the city. And what is a city without art anyway? I think you'll find it's a little bit dull and depressing. So thank goodness for the enduring art and artisans of Venice. Let's make sure we support their work so young people are inspired to pursue these crafts for many, many generations to come. Now, if you want to know the names and places that Monica mentioned, join her on a food tour or buy her book. Highly recommended. Then go to our show notes at untolditaly.com/208, where you'll find all the information neatly laid out for you. Grazie, thank you for your support of Untold Italy and your enthusiastic messages and reviews. It means the world to us that so many people from countries around the world tune in each and every week to listen to the show. If you do enjoy our Untold Italy podcast, it would be incredible if you took a few moments to write a quick review or give us a rating on your favourite podcast app. Grazie mille in advance. We appreciate you. Next week on Untold Italy, we're going to find out what it's like to spend time in Tuscany in the winter. But until then, it's ciao for now. The Untold Italy podcast is an independent production. Podcast editing, audio production and website development by Mark Hatter, production assistance and content writing by the other Katy Clarke. Yes, there are two of us. For more information about Untold Italy, please visit untolditaly.com.